What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Sean.
And we are speaking the language of bromance. Sean, I have got a story for you. This is a great story.
Ooh.
This is a story about love, about
Love is in the air right now.
opera.
Oh, I love me an opera.
Yeah, it's a story about love, opera, sword fighting,
Ah.
grave robbing,
Oh, that just took a twist.
arson,
Okay.
nudity,
Love it.
and bi-curious behavior.
This story has everything.
I thought you'd like it. Sean, I don't know how I didn't learn of this lovely woman before. I'm going to tell you the story of Julie d'Aubin, or d'Aubin. She's
D'Aubin?
French. D'Aubin.
Mm.
Or she's also known as La Maupin. La
La
Maupin.
Muppet?
No, not Muppet.
La Maupin?
That's
Because
a
she's
fucking
mopping
crazy
it
ass
all up?
Muppet if it's a Muppet. But
Well, you
La
just
Maupin.
told me about 6 different things that makes her seem crazy.
Maupin. Maupin.
Maupin.
Yeah. All right. So, Sean, we're going to start this tale. She was born in now. Okay. So bear in mind, I'm pulling from like 3 different articles because I didn't want to miss anything. Because this is a very sordid tale, and I want to like just dive right into it. Okay.
You have
So
Indiana Jones, Julie La Maupin all over the internet, and you're like, she belongs in a museum.
Well, no, La Maupin is what she's known as. It was kind of like her nickname or her handle.
Yeah.
But Julie d'Aubin was might have been her name. Nobody's exactly sure if her name was actually Julie.
Ooh,
So
intrigue. I feel like this would be the first entry into our LOB like history museum.
So she was born in 1670, Sean.
The summer of love.
That's right. She was born in 1670. Okay.
What was going on in 1670? We were just starting the U.S.
It was kind of the tail.
settled.
Yeah, so it's like the tail end of the Renaissance. France still had a king at that point. They hadn't, started beheading people,
Chopping heads off.
No French Revolution. They didn't they didn't burn the rich people to the ground yet. La Maupin, which is her married professional name, La Maupin is the name I'm going to use probably throughout the story because it just, I don't know, it plays out better.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. La Maupin. Okay. And also, like I said, nobody's 100% sure her given name was Julie. Her father was the man in charge of training Louis XV's pages, like training them on like how to fight.
Oh, okay.
So that was this guy's job. Her father would fence nonstop during the day and hit up gambling dens, bars, and brothels in the evenings. So given the seedy
France
circles,
was hopping.
I know, right? Don't you want to be in France in 1670?
Yeah, it's like, what's there to do in France? We don't have running toilets, but we got brothels, gambling halls, and what was the third thing? Bars?
Yeah, gambling dens, bars, and brothels.
Which could all just be one place. You know what? You could have totally revolutionized the France Revolution early by coming in and be like, hey, guess what? We're a bar, brothel, gambling shop all in one.
Yeah, you can get a drink, get a blowjob, and play cards all at the same time. Why doesn't Vegas do that? Prostitution's legal in Vegas, right?
No, not in the city limits. It's based off county sizes.
Okay, so you got to set up a place outside of Vegas, and we're like, hey, you can get a drink, a blowjob, and you can play cards all at once.
I think that's what a lot of the places do, except they don't really have cards because usually people just go like, hey, I want my dick sucked so I can drive the 30 minutes back to Vegas.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you don't want to, like, I would find it awkward if I'm getting a blowjob while, like, playing slots, like penny slots.
I don't know. There's a little bit of sleaze there that's kind of hot. I was thinking, like, if you're playing cards, Like, I can't tell if that's like your vinegar strokes or your tell sign. Like, I'm not sure right now.
Yeah. Well, and also like
All in. No,
If you're- yeah,
I'm not
if-
all in. I was
Exactly.
talking about something else.
I'm calling your bluff. Not a bluff. Not a bluff.
Yahtzee. Wrong game. No, I say that whenever I yield.
We're not playing Yahtzee. No, it's poker. Oh,
Sanitize those.
Oh, you made it weird.
Sanitize those chips. I know where he was hiding them. What would you call your France bar, brothel, gambling house all in one?
Disneyland, because it's the greatest place on earth.
La Disneyland.
La Disneyland.
Call it. Don't tell your wife.
Given the seedy circles in which he ran, it should be little surprise that his main ideas for daddy-daughter bonding time were A, teaching her daughter how to use deadly weapons, and B, using said weapons to drive off any potential suitors.
Nice. He's like, I can't afford a chastity belt because I just lost all my money. So
Yeah.
you know.
So take the
stabby,
sword,
stabby.
and I'm going to teach you how to fucking stab people in the face.
If LaPierre tries to stab you with his piece, you stab him with your piece first.
Yeah. His father's
Stick
name
him
was
with the
Gaston.
pointy end.
So no one drinks like Gaston. No one breathes like Gaston. No one has crazy bisexual daughters like Gaston.
Wait, she's the bisexual one?
She's the bisexual one. Oh, spoilers. That was me. That was on me.
Richard, you and I have talked about unicorns. I think we found the ultimate one.
The count, which so her father was his name was Gaston, and he was the secretary for the Comte d'Armagnac. The count, as Grand Squire of France or Royal Master of the Horse, was responsible for the education of the king's pages and the training of his horses. Gaston is said to have been a hard drinker and a heavy gambler, frequenting bars frequenting the sword, sword training by day and the company of women by night.
So back then, what were they drinking? Was it mostly just wine, or did they have beer? And
yeah, they had beer back then in the 1600s. Yeah, so it was. But it was France, so it was more likely it was wine if we're talking France.
I didn't know, because I know it seems like whenever you go back to certain times, it's usually just wine. Well, usually, like, sometimes it throws me off. It's like they drink beer in those time frames. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah. He raised his daughter in much the ways that the royal pages were trained in the household. She was instructed in writing, dancing, grammar, and drawing, and trained her in the art of the sword. He seems to have thought that training with a rapier and foil was the only way one could be safe upon the streets of Paris, and determined to see his child safe regardless of her sex. So he trains her to like use a sword, and he's like, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this, like straight out of Legend of Zelda.
You said this was pre-French Revolution, so it was a pretty rough time during this time frame, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Surrounded as she had been all her life by men and boys, she had learned, it would seem, the art of seduction as well as the sword.
Well, I mean, is it really much of an art for a woman to, have to practice seduction? And honestly, back then too.
Now let's bear in mind here. Right now, we're talking about a 14 to 15-year-old girl. She's 14 or 15 at this point where I'm about ready to start. Okay.
Now you made it awkward.
Well, I did, but like keep that in mind.
Okay.
So, the potential embargo on genital contact backfired when our heroine found a loophole in terms of like, keep all the men away. I'm gonna teach you how to fight.
Shit. Was
and
she
you're gonna
killing
keep all the men away?
Mid-boner?
She found a loophole, and the loophole, Sean, was she started stooping her dad's boss. She started sleeping with the count. Because her boss, the count, is one person that her father could not challenge to a duel.
Nice.
because
And
it's
I
her
bet
boss.
he knew that too.
Probably,
God, how would that
yeah.
make you feel?
Right?
You walk in, like that's ultimate dick move. Are you sure this
Yeah.
isn't how the French Revolution started? This guy's like, you
fuck
fucked
these
my
rich
daughter.
people. We teach them
No,
how to
I won't
use
tell-
swords. We teach them how to, like, we give them crowns and they're kings and whatever. And what do? They fuck your daughters. It's bullshit. When said boss became frustrated with Maupin's increasingly wild ways, he arranged her a marriage, Sean, to a mild-mannered clerk, thinking that might settle her down.
God, that seems icky. It's like, hey, clerk, here's my sloppy seconds.
Yeah.
Man.
Like, tame this wild horse.
Yeah. History was not kind to women, was it?
No, it wasn't. But I'll tell you what, like, this girl's carving a path.
Good. This is like
She responded-
like Batman of France.
I know, right? She responded in the only sensible manner. She took an amateur swordsman as a new lover and left home to wander aimlessly through France.
Oh, it is like an adventure.
She did. She took a new lover and she's like, come on, we're going to go fucking wander through France.
We're going to slay goblins and dragons and we're going to become level 20.
Yeah, in order to camouflage the affair, the Count arranged to marry her off. Shielded by the marriage, their affair continued for a while, no more than another year, but before young Julie became too much for the Count to handle, the Count ended the affair. Soon her arranged husband, was offered an administrative position overseeing the taxes and provinces, and some sources suggest that it was at her instigation. Others, the Count, perhaps in hopes of escaping her, and still others insist that it was Maupin's friends that helped get him this job. Marriage had freed her from the constraints that property placed on marriageable young ladies, and now her husband's absence and the Count's loss of interest gave her more freedom, and she went wild.
So she left the city.
There are reports of her striking shopkeepers and provoking fights with young aristocrats.
Nice.
Yeah, and then she found this amateur swordsman whose name is, I hate French. These French names are the worst. So they go off wandering through France. I'll skip that. They go off wandering through France. She earned her living through singing and dueling demonstrations.
Good.
So that's how she made a living.
Fighting with a sword, like everybody wants to see that.
No, it's like, see, you know why, Sean? Not everybody wants to see that. And you know how she fixed that? She dressed up as a man.
Oh, okay. So this was a time where it's like, no, we don't want to see sexy. Well, when was the topless sword fighting we talked about? Was that like
I don't think
1800s?
that wasn't until like the 1800s, I don't think.
So this is a time where I guess this was probably the time where you couldn't even have female actresses. You had to have dudes dress up as chicks to act.
Probably. This is a fashion she'd keep up with for the rest of her life. She was so skilled with the sword at this point in her life, quickly surpassing her new lover, that audiences sometimes would not believe she was actually a woman. In fact, when one drunken onlooker proclaimed loudly that she was actually a man, she tore off her shirt, providing him ample evidence to the contrary, and the heckler had no comeback. So she didn't care that people knew she was a woman. She just was like, so she's sitting there sword fighting, and she's like, oh, this is how you fuck somebody up. And dude's like, that's so good. That's a great job, dude. And she's like, what do you mean, dude? Like, I mean, dude, like,
so
yeah,
you gotta
dude.
have a dick. No chick can handle a sword like that. She's like, oh yeah, well, would a chick have this?
Yeah,
Look
and
at
then
my
fucking
beaver.
rips her shirt off. And she's like,
Yeah.
check this out, motherfucker. And the dude's like, I'm scared and aroused at the same time.
I think
I
he's
don't know what to
bluffing. No, that's not a bluff.
All I need is to play cards right now and Let's just hit the trifecta. If Maupin had one overriding flaw, she had an allergy to boredom.
Oh, don't we all?
Right? Unwilling or unable to let the swordsman provide for them both, Julie found two occupations, the sword and the song. They gave exhibitions of dueling and sang and told stories in the tap room of the inn where they were staying. By this point, she had adopted her habit of dressing in men's clothing, so proficient that she could not be a woman.
Is it really like, I'm thinking this time, like the women just wore dresses, right? So really like taking on men's clothing is probably more of a
right. I would think like you're just like wearing a suit. Thing. Yeah.
Because like, I mean, today, like women wear pants like men do, and it's not really thought of any different. So I would imagine she would do that because it would give her more mobility in like a fight if it came up.
Yeah. Soon arriving in Marseille, she auditioned at the music academy. A friend of Lully, who was a highly influential director. Her beautiful contrario voice, despite her lack of musical training, had a great effect, and she was accepted into the music academy. This would seem to have occurred not long after he opened the school, and she made her professional singing debut under the name of M. And for a time, she and the swordsman, I think his name is Saranis, supported themselves by singing at the theater. But then she got bored.
Well, I could imagine. This isn't like the great musical life of now. Like she's not sharing it up out there, going from town to town, wearing her sexy outfits, making billions of dollars a year. No, that's Celine Dion.
Yeah, well, and then
Cher probably makes a
but I'll tell you what, if somebody's not like Celine Dion, that sounds like a dude's name, and then Celine Dion like fucking rips her top off and is like, I'm French Canadian, motherfucker. And then the guy's like, what does that have to do with you showing me your tits?
You don't know the story of La Mafia.
No, I don't.
I'm intrigued.
Explain it to me right now at great length,
please. It'll keep my attention.
Okay, so she got bored and she declared that. So she dumped the amateur swordsman. She dumped Saranis. She's like, I'm done with you. Not only did she say she's done with him, she said she's done with men in general. Having experienced,
I only want one type of sword in my hand, and it's not a dick.
I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've held one dick, you've held them all, am I right?
That true?
I don't know. They all look pretty much the same. I mean, there's some that are like, you're like, holy shit. Is that a club?
Yeah. Speaking of dicks, I had to explain to somebody the other day about the enormous fucking Godzilla arm that Tommy Lee has.
No, I've never really even seen that.
Well, he was a younger kid, and so he didn't know that Tommy Lee and Pamela had like a sex tape that went out on the internet.
Yeah.
I was like, that was like the first sex tape that went out on the internet. He's like, it was bigger than the whole like Kim Kardashian and fucking Ray J sex tape. I was like, yeah, that thing, like, that was in the news. Like, hey,
Kim Kardashian, it was like, who's this and who's this? Why do I care?
Yeah.
I'll watch it.
But you watch that first sex tape and you're like, holy shit, it's a fucking Playmate and the drummer from Motley Crue. What the fuck is that? Is that his penis?
He's rocking like a 12-incher, isn't he?
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. It's stupid.
One of those you need a permit for?
Yeah, one of those that like I feel like is cruel to women. It's definitely cruel to me. But
was it because whenever like you were with a girl at the time, they're like, well, that would just be too big. Nobody wants one too big. Yours is just right.
And that's what they all say.
What's just right mean?
Yeah, that's what they all say, but you always want, like, it's gotta be like in the back. Like whenever a girl always said that to me, like always in the back of my head, I'm like, is that true? Like, are you just being nice? And they're always like, no, that would be terrible. I'm like,
and then you look at their toy collection, you roll it out, it looks like freaking
looks like they severed the arms of fucking like monsters in the deep.
Yeah. And then solidified them in glass and plastic and metal. Like, I can't compete with this.
No, I can't.
That's it. Just dudes from now on. And dudes that are just the right size.
Um, having experienced the attentions of young ladies who at first mistook her for a man, she thought it would make a charming contrast for a virile woman such as herself to be seen around town with a young girl. A blonde would show off her own dark coloring. Soon, a beautiful young blonde, perhaps mistaking Maupin for a man, demonstrated some infatuation with Maupin, who reciprocated with ardor. The young lady's parents, not surprisingly, did not approve of the liaison and quickly sent her. Where did they send her, Sean?
Nunnery school.
They sent her to a convent. You are 100% correct.
Yep. That's what
can't
that's
be
what
having
did.
relations with no women's and
Well,
not
I figured
filming.
it was like, that's not the kind of man you should marry. Go to nun school and marry Jesus.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. So the parents were like, you are not walking around town making out with no ladies. So to the convent you go.
You need some Jesus.
That's right. So what do you think? What do you think Maupin did?
I bet when her...
You think she got bored and she was like, well, if she's gone, I'll just go fuck somebody else.
No, I was thinking like as they were taking her to her convent, right? She rides in on a horse with like a Zorro type outfit, jumps in, stops the horses, like, we just want the girl. Then takes her back to the woods and they make sweet, sweet lesbian love.
No, Sean. What happens is actually far, far better because
she killed the parents.
No, she did not kill the parents. She found the good loophole. She also joined the convent.
Oh, damn. This is like every porno.
So she joins the convent so that way she can keep fucking the merchant's daughter while they're at the convent. She's like, what's the convent for? Women? Oh, gee. So she rips off her fucking shirt and she's like, does this get me into the convent?
So she gets to share a locker room with a lot of bored, horny women. Because they all get sent there for that. Either because they're making it with dudes or because the parents are worried they're about to make it with dudes. They get there, they're all curious about their body. They just need that one spark, Richard, to be like, ladies.
So now it's all Maupin is the new black. That's what happened.
Yeah. She's like, Mother Jones is out. I spiked her wine. Let's all fuck.
Yeah. They don't make that sound, Sean. Lesbian sex is beautiful. When it's between two consenting adults. It's beautiful. Don't be gross. So the parents are like, we're sending her to the convent. And she's like, okay, that's fine. I'll just join the convent. And so she joins the convent, and then the two of them are in the convent, and they're all fucking getting it on.
You know, Lamapa is the kid that, like, you're like, you go to your room and you do not step foot out of that room. And they stand right at the edge of the door. You're like, you get in your room, like, I am in my room.
And you just want to punch him in the face. And you know what, Sean? Sometimes, as a parent of three, that's the best thing for him. Just a good punch in the face. That's not true.
It's not. Because then they punch you back and it hurts.
Yeah, they do. They're fucking mean.
They are.
I'm scared of all my children, Sean.
Well,
I live in a house of fear.
So you guys are outnumbered.
Right? I live in a house of fear.
I know. I just saw the interaction back there. You had to beg to do the podcast tonight.
Yeah.
Like, is it okay if I do a show? No. Okay.
Oh, please. All right.
Give me $20. Is 40 okay?
Maupin joined the convent herself and started hooking up with her intended in the house of God. So they're there at the convent and they're fucking. And, you know, it's Orange is the New Black, but a convent. So now
oh, shit, Richard. You just might have made the new Netflix TV show.
Right? It's like Wentworth, but nuns.
Well, in the 1680s?
Yeah.
You can call it none of your business. Write that one down.
Yep. Copyright. Shortly into their convent stay, an elderly nun died from unrelated natural causes. It would
Sex
seem.
exhaustion.
So this old nun dies, and Maupin comes up with a plan. Because you know what? You know what happens, Sean? Like, you're there at the convent for 3 months, and like she's probably like, well, yeah, like I'm with this one girl, but like this is boring. Like, let's get out of here. So what's she do, Sean? The nun dies of natural causes. The old nun dies of natural causes. So they have a funeral. They put her in the ground. And that night, Maupin comes. She digs the body up, Sean. Digs the body out of the ground.
Why? Why would you dig up the body?
This is why she digs up the body. She takes the body, puts it in her lover's room, and then sets the convent on fire.
Well, that's
Sean,
how season 1 ends.
She burns this convent to the ground.
Damn. So
She digs up the old nun, puts the old nun in her girlfriend's room, so that way everybody thinks the girlfriend died, and then sets the building on fire.
Do you really think they kept that good of numbers? Like, do you think you could have just burned the building down? They'd be like, all right, let's do count off. 1, 2, 3. Wait, we're missing 2? Maybe. I don't know. Who keeps track?
Well, right. I mean, they didn't have
lesbians.
It's not like they had CSI convent in Paris in 1670.
That's the spinoff show.
Yeah. So she burns the convent to the ground. The two run off in the confusion and enjoy a long elopement.
How long?
Oh, 3 months.
6 months. Oh, damn.
3 months. After 3 months, Maupin got bored, dumped her back at her parents' house, and ran off into the night.
Damn.
Right?
How would you get bored with that? Like, this chick's burned a building down and dug up a dead nun. You couldn't, rock her world for more than 3 months?
Yep.
Man, this is a chick that, if you dated in high school, this was your first girlfriend, you'd be ruined for the rest of your life. Yeah.
This is the woman that would ruin you on women. Yeah. This is the woman that after she dumped you, you'd be like, you know what? I'm just done with women altogether. Yeah. And then you take up a man, and then you burn a preschool to the ground.
Well, that's the thing is you get married and you're like, oh, you just want missionary? Oh, do you want to start out that and then we'll go to reverse cowgirl and then pegging?
Or are you gonna put your hair up? Do you want me to wear the mouthpiece? Or usually the girl does it, so
you always talk about Lamapa. Well,
that bitch was fucking nuts.
Missionary for the 3rd time this year. It's June, Steve. I know. 3rd time this year.
So the girl that she burns a fucking convent for and digs up a body. The girl she digs up a body and burns down a convent for 3 months. That's all this girl gets.
Digging up a body's not easy either. They show that on Supernatural all the time. You know how long it would take to dig up a body?
Oh my God, I would think it would take hours because they're down there.
Oh yeah. Well, it's 6 feet of dirt.
I mean, even if it's a fresh grave and the dirt hasn't had time to settle, but still.
Oh, I'm sorry, Richard. It's France. Okay, 2 meters of dirt.
You don't know. You have no idea. You're like, I don't know, 100 milliliters, right? Is that? I don't know.
6 French fries. I don't know. French are weird. They don't shave their armpits, right?
Worth of dirt.
And a bag of croissants.
How would you feel being this girl? This chick burned down a building, digs up a dead nun, and burns down a building. And after 3 months, she's like, "Why are we here? Why are we at Mom and Dad's house? Are we here to finally meet Mom and Dad? It's Thanksgiving. Hey, where are you going? Ring the doorbell. Come back." Oh,
yeah. You would think that that's kind of ride or die kind of thing. You do something like that,
right?
It's nope, we're together forever. If you did that for me, Richard, I'd be like, this is my life now.
Yeah, I know,
Never
right?
gonna change.
Yeah. Okay. So after she dumps the girl lover and then runs off into the night. For this next bout of debauchery, or for this bout of debauchery, which is, the burning of the convent and everything like that, she was sentenced to death.
Oh, so she got caught.
She did. They figured out she did it, and she was sentenced to death.
They did CSI nunnery it.
They did. They CSI'd it. I don't think
Looks
they
like
really
we got here.
Well, probably
in
because
the cloth of
probably what
time.
happened is the girl was like, she fucking dug a nun up and burned the convent down.
Because
her parents are like, why are you here? And then the girl's probably like, because my girlfriend burned the convent down.
Oh, good point. Yeah, it's always the exes. And like you think about like all like the big cases where, the big like crime pins get caught, it's always an ex. It's a spurned lover.
Yep. So what does Maupin do with this death sentence now over her head?
She's like, screw you guys, I found a loophole. I'm joining death.
She did kind of find a loophole. So what she does, here's what she does when she finds out she's sentenced to death. She goes back home to her very first lover, her dad's boss, because remember,
I invoke diplomatic immunity.
Well, you got to remember her dad's boss is a count, and her dad's boss is also the one that like is in charge of the pages and the horses for the king himself. So she goes back to her dad's boss, and through his influence, convinces Louis XV to revoke her sentence.
Oh, she got the governor's. What do they call that?
She fucked her way to a pardon, is what she did.
Yeah.
The king did so, and she took advantage of her new lease on life by running off to Paris and joining the opera.
Oh, so she kind of went to a good spot.
Yeah. So she shows up and she's like, hey, so I got this kind of like thing going on. Like, I don't know, like a death sentence or something.
I don't know.
Do you think you could talk to the king? I mean, I'd love you forever if you did.
Have you seen the new Netflix show, None of Your Business? Yeah, that's totally about me.
That's totally about me.
Spoiler alert, season 2 ends on a pretty dark note.
Nobody had any pictures. Nobody took any pictures because, it's like 1670, but we did let somebody paint a picture once. So
and I've got a copy if you want it.
If you want it, just
don't show anybody. Hashtag.
Can you like
blessed.
Just make hashtag living my best life? So Louis XV pardons Maupin. And as soon as that happens, Maupin's like, okay, thanks, bye. And books it to Paris and joins the opera. Okay, Sean. So all this has happened so far. We're 35, almost 40 minutes into this. And she is now turned 20. All this has happened before she turned 20.
She lived this life. Like, this is a beyond full life. She lived this in less time than it took Billy the Kid to get shot.
Yeah.
Because Billy the Kid was 21 when he died.
And this chick has done sword fighting and
damn girls
bisexual behavior, dressing as a dude, having sword fights, singing,
grave robbing.
Lovers, grave robbing. But we're not done, Sean. We're not done. We're not done at all. We're only at age 20.
Yeah, I thought this was like, okay, she goes to Paris, joins the opera, she gets big and fat and wears that big like Viking helmet. It's like,
Nope. I have
none of your business, none of your business, none of your business. Digging up the graves, digging up the graves.
So her behavior amped up even more when she became an opera singer because
Paris in the 16,
Well, in the 1670s, like if you're an opera singer, you're like the fucking like rock star of your day,
Oh yeah, I remember like it was the swinging 1670s.
Yeah, you're like the Tommy Lee of 1670 France. Okay, so I have 3 stories of her time in Paris.
All right.
So 3 stories. All this happens in her time being an opera singer in Paris. So there was another opera singer. First one is there was another opera singer named Dumeril, and he started talking shit about a number of women, including Maupin.
He's like, I remember the days when we would cast men as women, and they were better women than those women. What's next? They'll shave their armpits?
Oh, wait, hang on. I might actually have stuff before this. Because like I said, I'm pulling from like 3 different sources here. Upon her condemnation by a tribunal, Maupin fled Marseille for Paris, a journey that would take her several months. We find her next in Orleans, down on her luck, returning to eking out a living, singing in taverns and inns as she makes her way along the Loire Valley. She seems to have thrown herself into this occupation with the zeal that seems to be her most defining characteristic. She is quoted as saying of this time, I tried to even compose the words and airs of some chastenets, which were liked well enough by my rough audiences. Eventually, she made her way south to Pointers, where she met an aging drunk named Martial. Martial was a talented musician and actor and recognized Maupin as someone who belonged on the stage in Paris, not living the life of a vagabond. You could be the best singer in Paris within 4 or 5 years, and I will teach you. He offered, and she accepted. He trained her for a time, but soon his drunkenness took its toll, and he began to fall into incoherence. He taught her as long as he was able to. What he taught me was a true revelation. In the end, as drink overcame him, he sent her away, advising her to go to Paris and to take whatever job she could find in the theater. She once again sang for a supper in taverns once she got there, and she came into the company of a number of young squires at the inn. The two are quite different versions of this. There are 2 quite different versions of this encounter. Both agree that she was, as usual, dressed as a man. In the first account, she had just finished singing when one of the young men accosted her. It would seem that she had seen through her masculine disguise and said, "Tell me, O pretty bird, I've listened to your chirping, but now tell me of your plumage." Basically, it's like a come on line. Like, hey, bitch, you sing good, but like, wow's the rest.
You sing good?
This angered Maupin, and she rebuffed him and reached for her sword. The young bravo responded in kind, and soon the challenge was given and accepted, and Maupin found herself facing 3 squires in a sword fight. They withdrew to the tavern's courtyard, where she fought all 3 at once and won.
Nice.
So she kicks the shit out of 3 people and wins. The match ended when she ran the fellow who had offended her clean through the shoulder. Pinned by her blade, her foe twisted around until he could see her sword's point, red with his blood, emerging from his back.
So it wasn't a killing blow. It was
she didn't kill him. She stabs him through the shoulder.
That's a big fuck you.
So she's sword fighting 3 fucking people, beats him, takes the dude that was trying to come on to her, stabs him through the shoulder. She sheathed her blade, turned her back upon the fallen men, and withdrew to her room. Her conscience bothered her that night, and she couldn't sleep, nor in the morning did she continue on her way. Instead, she went to the village barber, who acted as the local surgeon, and asked of the health of her opponent. The barber assumed that he would recover, and she inquired about his identity. He was, she was told, Louis Joseph d'Albert, the son of the Duke of Louvres, and that evening, one of his companions called upon Maupin to convey his apologies for the insults he had offered her while he was in his cups.
Nice. So she got an apology from him.
He begged her forgiveness, and she answered that she would deliver her reply in person. That night, dressed as a woman, she called upon d'Albert in his room, and they began a passionate love affair. and she
Nice.
helped nurse him back to health.
You know, she had him pinned down with her thumb in that hole as she was like just tearing him up.
No, I'm saying, like, this dude was like, hey, baby. And she's like, fuck you. Don't talk to me like that. And pulls her sword out. And then he's like, oh, yeah. And then he pulls his sword out. And then she fights 3 dudes, stabs this guy in the shoulder. Then the next day she feels bad, goes to his fucking room and fucks him.
And it's a tale that's been told a million times.
Because the dude's like, hey, you know what? Like, I was a dickhead. I'm sorry. And she's like, that's all I wanted to hear. And then they start, what the fuck? What?
That's all I wanted to hear. Now unsheath your sword. No, I don't want to fight. Not that sword.
So she stabs the dude in the shoulder on a Tuesday, and they're fucking on a Wednesday, Sean. What the fuck?
Well, like you said, this chick is not normal. God, could you imagine too, like back then, he asked her, like, because you know, like, when you start dating nowadays, you're like, okay, so, like, let's, like, talk about our history. Like, you know, I've done this and this and this. What have you done? And, like, at this time, he's like, I've been with, like, 3 women. She's like, oh, so have I.
In the second version of this tale, Albert did not recognize her for a woman, and when Maupin arrived at the inn, there were a number of lackeys tending the horses of their masters. Maupin strode in, took place at one of the tables, where she was joined by the leader of the band. She wore burgundy and greeted the young man with a barely stifled yawn. The fellow became loud and boisterous, gesturing expansively as he extolled the many virtues of his horse in great and boring detail. And Maupin responded in kind, discounting on the merits of her own steed, but eventually she became bored with the young man's argumentative ways, and she stood to leave, and he grasped her arm clumsily to restrain her, tearing the lace off her cuff. She rebuffed him, throwing off his grasp and spilling the wine. And then swords were drawn, and Albert, hot with anger, backed by his followers, faced Maupin in cold steel. D'Albert fancied himself an excellent swordsman, but found his best attacks parried. Maupin drove her sword clear through his shoulder. So basically, the only difference is like how the fight started, but it still ended the same way. Maupin still had the oh wait, so that's just the first story, Sean, of her in Paris. The second one is
story number 2.
Okay, we'll go back to the one that I was telling before. Another opera singer named Dumil started talking shit about a number of women, including Maupin. She responded by ambushing him, pushing a sword in his face, and demanding a duel. When he refused, she beat him with a cane, stealing his snuff box and watch.
So she mugged him.
She basically did. Well, the dude was talking shit and about a bunch of girls, and she's like, "Don't fucking do that." And he's like, why? What the fuck are you going to do? And she pulls her fucking sword out and she's like, we can fucking fight about it. And he's like, no. Cause he probably knows like this chick will beat my fucking ass. So he's probably like, no, I don't want to have a sword fight. And she's like, fine. And then beats him with a fucking cane and steals his shit.
So what happened with him after that? Does it say?
After
Did he,
that, the next
apologize?
No, the next day she caught him complaining that he had been assaulted by a gang of thieves. She called him a liar and a coward. And then she took out his watch and his snuff box and threw them at him and declared that she alone had architected his ass beating.
Nice. It's like, you're nothing but a little bitch.
Yeah. And he's like, no, there was like 4 guys. I didn't know what to do. It's like, oh yeah, did the 4 guys have this? Or did they have this?
Shame.
It was me.
Shame.
It was me, motherfucker.
Like, what do you expect? I'm an actor.
So that's the second story. Third story. She attended a royal ball. This royal ball was either thrown by Louis XV or his brother. So she shows up at the ball dressed as a man.
Oh, God. She had sex with the queen, didn't she?
She spent most of the evening courting a young woman, which earned the ire of the 3 suitors that this woman was seeing. So there's 3 dudes that are like eyeing this chick, like, hey, that chick looks kind of hot. And then Maupin shows up dressed as a dude, and she is totally macking on this girl. And she's into it. And these 3 dudes are like, what the fuck? Who's this guy?
What's this dude got that we don't got? Probably vagina, am I right?
Wait a minute. Maupin then pushed things too far and kissed the young lady in full view of everyone.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
you
think these
French kiss, if you will?
Yeah. These 3 guys didn't like that at all. The 3 challenged her to a duel because they were so
I don't
offended.
like about this time frame is that like everybody's quick to challenge to a duel,
right? But you don't want to challenge fucking Maupin to a duel because Maupin beat your ass, and that's exactly what happened. She fought all 3 of them outside the royal palace and won.
Nice.
According to some accounts, she actually killed them. I don't know if that's confirmed.
Dispose their body into the lagoon of French alligators.
They surrounded the couple on the dance floor, protesting Maupin's disgraceful behavior. At your service, gentlemen, she answered them in the standard formula of the duel, and all 4 withdrew to the dark gardens to settle the affair. Maupin defeated all 3 at once, though whether she killed or merely disarmed and injured them, no one can say.
Well, I mean, afterwards, if like she's like, guess what? You've just been defeated by a woman. They're like, bullshit. And she's like, proof. And they're like, just tell everybody you killed us.
I can't take it. It's 1670 in France.
I'm moving to England.
In any event, she returned alone to the ball victorious, only to be confronted by King Louis XV himself. So King Louis says, "You are the Jade Maupin. I have heard of your handiwork. Need I remind you of my decree against duels in Paris?"
After the duel?
This is after the duel. She denied nothing because obviously, how could she? She just fought 3 dudes right out fucking side. She was well known and had clearly been the center of everyone's attention. It would seem, however, that she did not present herself to Monsieur who interceded for her. The next day, she awaited word of her fate, but instead of being arrested, she received word that the king, who seems was again amused by her panache, was speculating that his law governed only men and not women, and that she was free to duel at will.
Loopholes. He invited her back. He's like, listen, the queen is kind of like curious, and like she's like, maybe if we try this, you'd be okay with it.
Is it okay if like, I mean, like I won't be there, but like, is it okay if like I have somebody there, like just, paint a picture for me?
I mean, I might just kind of watch and like, if you guys feel like into it, I might step in. And she's like, don't push your luck, king.
She was free to duel at will. His hesitation gave her time to flee to Brussels until the crisis had passed. So she got word from the king that the king was basically like saying like, yeah, like it's fine, like I'm not 100% on it, but like I'm inclined to say it's fine. And she's like, cool, deuces, and she runs to Brussels. So she goes to Brussels basically until the heat dies down. She did, however, in Brussels, she became for a time the mistress to Maximilian Emmanuel, who was the Elector of Bavaria, one of the German princes of the Holy Roman Empire and governor of the Spanish Netherlands. The Elector
she's like the Forrest Gump of France.
Right? Oh my God, that's fucking perfect. Yeah. She totally is. She's like hanging out with the king, and she's fucking sword fighting 3 people at once and beating their ass, and she's ripping her shirt off and showing her chest to people, and she's digging up nuns and setting convents on fire, and fucking ladies and fucking dudes, and sleeping with her dad's boss.
Yeah, hanging out with the queen. She's like, sorry about your sheets.
The
queen's
elector
like, oh,
eventually
it's okay.
The elector eventually tired of her, and she was replaced by a countess. He tried to pay her off by sending the countess' own husband with 40,000 francs and orders for her to leave Brussels. She threw the money at the count's face, declaring it to be a present worthy of a cuckold such as himself.
Ooh. So is this where
This dude shows up
money shot
40,000 francs. And she's like, fuck you, you dirty cuck. This chick is so boss. She did, however, leave Brussels and return to Paris. So she took this 40,000 francs, she throws it back in this dude's face, and she's like, fuck you, I leave on my own terms, and bounces.
And now at the age of 22, what happens?
So she returns to Paris, and she resumes her career on the opera stage, where in addition to her earlier debut role of Athena, it is recorded that she played such characters as Dido, the founder of Carthage, and the goddess Minerva. In 1702, she added a successful run as Medea in Lagrange's opera Medeiros, a role so difficult that M. Rousseau said that she would have refused it. In that same year, Andre Campra wrote the opera Tancrete for Le Maupin. It was the first opera in Paris written for a female lead who was not a soprano. She retired from the opera in 1705, and you know where she went, Sean? In 1705, she went back home. She went back home to the very first lover she had.
The Count?
She went back to the Count, because technically they were, as far as I know, technically they were still kind of together.
Okay.
She returned to Paris, and then she died in 1705.
What age was she then?
She would have been 32.
Damn. So she's my age when she died.
She died in 1705, and she was born so it's 35. She died at 35.
Oh, okay. But she lived, like, in this time frame, like, she lived, what, 10 lives?
Yeah.
It feels like.
So she settled down with the, with the dude, and after that she returned to Paris, died 5 or 6 years later of unknown causes. She was, at best as anyone could tell, 37. Her life story thereafter was reported in a number of articles, usually in the pearl-clutching, vapor-having tone a high society woman might use to describe the bride of Satan. Several of these stories claim that she had a massive change of heart late in life, became religious, and rejoined the convent. And given these articles seemingly only exist to use her life as a morality tale, I'm not sure how literally to take them.
Well, she probably did. She's like, man, I'm bored. I'm going to get me some of that nun vagina.
It is generally agreed, however, that she spent the final years of her life reunited and living life peacefully. Because technically she was still married. Like, yeah. You forgot that. That happened like fucking like 40 minutes. I told you about that like 30 minutes ago, and that fell out of your head because she's digging up nuns and setting buildings on fire and calling counts dirty cucks.
You talk about tales that need to be like put on a screen. This is one that needs to be there.
Maupin is a genuine fucking badass.
Yes. Over the decades, like you said, it's Forrest Gump, but in the French 1670s. Crazy.
Right?
I love
so
this
there you
story.
go, Sean. That is the tale of Maupin.
And what do they call her? The what is Satan?
Oh, well, no, I mean, that was kind of anecdotal. They're basically like, the articles that came out about her after she died was kind of like used as the morality tale, like, oh, don't be like Maupin.
Well, I was just thinking, like, you tag it like Maupin, the bride of Satan, or Maupin, not the spawn, Maupin, the daughter of Satan.
Yeah.
Digging up nuns.
Let me help you out of your chair, Grandma.
Richard, well, I love this tale. It's going to be on my backlog for script ideas for sure. I think this is a television show. But as we're coming to a close, what are some of your Richard's closing thoughts on Maupin?
Okay, so when you think about like the 16th century, the 17th or the 17th century, like you always get this impression like everybody's walking around in like these Elizabethan clothes, and they're all very like prim and proper, and everything is very regimented. But you know what, Sean? That's not the case, because I just told you a story about a chick that was infamous and did all sorts of crazy shit. And not just that, not only did all sorts of crazy shit, but did all sorts of crazy shit and pretty much got away with everything she did. And so, like, this is a girl that lived life to the fullest, 100%. And
Maupin, the devil's loophole.
Yeah. I'm not saying that we should all aspire to be like her, but I do think that she is a shining example that, like, hey, they had like crazy wild fucking shit going on back in the day too. So
go join a nunnery.
Is that what you're saying? It's not all pearl clutching and
plague.
Yeah. You got crazy girls that run around and have sword fights.
Yeah.
And rip their shirts off.
God, like, could you imagine meeting that girl back in those days? Like,
oh my God, I bet I bet she's that girl that like fucking like the door swings open and she walks in with like this fucking swagger and bravado. She's like the guy. She's like a female Han Solo. That's what I'm picturing.
There you go. Yeah. All right, Richard. Well, as I know you and I couldn't handle Mappa, the devil's loophole, I will do a little bit of housekeeping before she busts our doors open. Visit our website, we're at languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at eatthebeaver at languageofbromance.com. Like us on Facebook. And remember, we are part of the Pod Bros Network.
The Maupin of podcast networks. Except we don't dig up nuns and burn down convents. Allegedly.
No. Court date pending. All right. Was there anything else before I close her out?
Nope.
All right. Well, that's all the bromance we have for this show. I'm Sean.
And I'm Richard.
And I say we eat the beaver. None of your business.